My husband knocked out my brother for calling me an intimacy worker, and my parents want me to choose what is the right choice. This past weekend, my husband and I were at my parents' house for a BBQ. The day was going great until my brother started to have a go at me, calling me names and belittling me. My husband pulled my brother aside and had a talk with him, and the insults stopped. An hour or so later, we were standing around talking with some friends and family members when my brother came up to me and told me I'm an intimacy worker. His exact words were, "You know you are a freaking intimacy worker, right?" He said it loud enough for almost everyone at the party to hear. All I saw was my husband next to me look at me. Then I felt a push to the side, my husband stepping in front of me, and the next thing was my brother out cold on the ground with blood on his face. All I heard was my mother yelling and my husband saying, "You don't talk to my wife like that. I warned you already." Before I continue, my husband didn't hurt me. He didn't push me hard or anything like that. It was like a push that someone will give you when they are trying to pass. I went like one step back, that is all. I'm not mad at my husband, I'm mad at my brother. The whole day he was demeaning me, insulting me, belittling me. I don't know where this came from, as he has never talked to me like that or to anyone that I know of. The bigger problem I have is that I have to choose either my husband or my parents. My parents are pissed and have given me an ultimatum. I either leave my husband and divorce him, or they cut me off completely. My husband doesn't give a crap that they are mad. The only thing he is mad about is that he only got one punch in his words. I love my husband and don't want to lose him, but I also don't want to lose my parents. They have supported me through a lot and have always been there for me. I know they are serious, as this is the first time they have ever issued me with an ultimatum. They also threatened my husband with an attack charge, but he doesn't care and welcomed them to do it. I'm stuck between a decision that will change my life forever, and I'm panicking. I have received messages from friends and other family members that have given me support and condemned my husband, but they are leaning more on the support side. Any advice will be appreciated. Edit to clarify. I am choosing my husband. I have never questioned that, but I also don't want to lose my family. I am very family-oriented, and family to me is everything. I want to find a solution where I can keep both. Now for a few important comments. One commenter asked why my parents think it's okay that my brother called me names and what their excuse is. I replied that they haven't excused his actions, but they are condemning my husband for resorting to violence. Another commenter mentioned that it sounds very dysfunctional and questioned what kind of family does this stuff. They asked about the circumstances whereby my brother goes off on me like that, and now my parents issue an ultimatum. I replied that my husband is sweet and gentle, but has never cared what someone else thinks about him other than me and his own mother. When asked about my husband's reaction, I explained that he doesn't resort to violence. I have never seen him really angry, and what I saw in his face was past just anger. This is the first time I have seen him react violently to anything. My brother has never talked to me like that before either. Regarding whether my husband needs to earn my parents' forgiveness, I stated that my husband honestly doesn't care. When I asked if he would apologize for reacting with violence just to keep the peace, he told me my brother and parents can go frick themselves. My husband has tried to cheer me up, but he hasn't pushed anything on me. He hasn't given me an ultimatum to choose him or anything. He did apologize for putting me in the position with my parents, but he isn't sorry for knocking out my brother. In my husband's words, I asked him nicely to stop, and I did tell him he will face the consequences if he continued, and he didn't listen. He doesn't care what people think of him. The only opinions that matter to him are mine and his own mother's. When asked if I had dated someone before my husband, and whether my brother called me names for another reason like cheating, I clarified that my husband was my first, and I have never done anything else with anyone except my husband. Now for the update. First, I would like to thank everyone and apologize for the way I worded my post. It's no excuse, but my emotional state isn't the best. My husband is my choice, and I have no intentions of leaving him at all. I never had. I know it's early for an update, but I'm more confused now about what is going on. My parents invited me over to have a talk with them, but they wanted me to come alone as they didn't want my husband at their house. My husband refused to let me go alone and said if he isn't going, then he won't allow me to. He basically said, with you alone there, they will just pile on you, and that I won't let happen. So we went together. My parents weren't happy to see him, and my mother wanted to say something until my husband told her he isn't there for them, but me, and if he is forced to leave, I will leave with him. I agreed with him. Reluctantly, they agreed. My brother was there as well. He has a broken nose and chipped teeth and refused to look at me or my husband. He just kept looking at the ground even while talking. Apparently, what happened with my brother is that he broke up with his girlfriend a month ago. It's more like she broke up with him. Don't know the reason, don't care. I wasn't aware of this as we aren't close like that. According to him, the reason he had a go at me this weekend is because my life, according to him, my perfect life with my husband kept popping up on his feeds, and he got jealous. Everything on my social media is with my husband. I don't really use it for anything else, but his feed was full of my posts, and that set him off as I had something that he didn't. It got worse when he overheard me and my mother talking when I had a discussion with her over children. My husband and I are currently trying to have a baby, and that just made everything worse in his head. His life was falling apart, and mine was going perfectly, and I had and was trying to have what he wanted with his ex. He said he didn't take my husband seriously when he pulled him aside and warned him. I seriously don't know why he went after me, as nothing he said was true in any sense, and I did ask him why he said those things. He refused to answer me. I asked him why the intimacy worker comment, because he knows my husband was my first in everything, and it has only been him all these years. He refused to answer. I asked him if trying to have a baby with my husband makes me an intimacy worker, as it involves intimacy, and he just left the room. I asked my parents why they didn't step in and tell my brother to leave or stop. My dad said he wanted to, but my mother told him to leave my brother be, as he is not actually hurting anyone. The same with the ultimatum. They wanted to protect my brother. I asked what about me, and they were silent. All my father said was the ultimatum was my mother's idea, and he went along with it. This is basically where we are at the moment. A lot more was said, but I don't think it matters. My husband did apologize to my parents for what happened, but refused to apologize to my brother. When my mother asked him to apologize to my brother, he outright said no. He won't apologize for standing up for me, and my brother got what he deserved. He was warned and didn't listen. My mother said it still doesn't excuse him for hitting my brother. My husband asked my dad what he would do if someone called his wife an intimacy worker. My father said, I will have a talk with that person, but will never hit someone. My husband laughed and told my dad he is a weak-willed, spineless man if he allows someone to demean his wife like that. That got my mom red in the face. I could see her get angry. That is when I told my husband it's time to leave. I told my parents that I will be going low contact with them, and the ultimatum they gave me broke the trust I had in them. I understand they wanted to protect my brother, but in doing that, they hurt me. This seemed to take all the anger out of my mother. They asked if I will be cutting them out completely, and I told them that is up to them. I don't want anything to do with my brother at the moment, as he can't even apologize for what he said to me. I told them if they can respect my wishes, we will see. When we got up to leave, my husband went over to my parents and actually still greeted them politely, but told my dad it's time to grow a backbone. I don't know what I saw, but I think it was shame on my mother's face, because my dad looked at my mother, and she looked away from him. This is where we are at the moment. My husband, on the way back home, apologized for possibly escalating things, but told me it was time someone told my dad the truth. He said whatever punishment comes, he will take and deal with any fallout. I don't need to worry or stress about anything. Now for some additional information. My brother's ex cheated on him, and apparently he begged her to fix things, but she chose the other guy. Now he is just pissed and angry at every woman and believes we will all do that eventually. I got a message from my cousin. The family had a go at my parents for allowing my brother to talk to me the way he did, and they came clean as to why he did what he did, but couldn't do it when I was over and we talked. They couldn't be honest with me and just refused to answer. Now for a few comments. When asked about the support she's received, OP said, "Honestly, really thinking about it, the only person I have felt genuine, unconditional love and support from is my husband. There are a lot of things I just swept under the rug and thought it was sibling things. But looking back, whenever my brother had a difficult time, it was taken out on me in some way. And my parents have never stuck up for me. My husband has had my back around every corner and had never thrown things in my face like my parents or brother have." On her parents' relationship and why they are not hearing her out, OP said, "My father just follows what my mother said. In my 26 years of life, I have never seen my dad go against my mother with anything. Anything she says or wants to do is fine with him, no matter the cost. For instance, my dad basically has no friends as my mother didn't like them, so he gave them up and hasn't made new friends because when he tried, my mother found something she doesn't like about that person, and he agrees." When someone suggested OP should have gone alone to talk with her parents and brother about her husband's behavior, she responded, "So I should take the way he worded it over the fact that he wanted to be there and make sure I'm not getting gaslighted. I took it as he wanted to ensure I'm safe and what happens doesn't happen again. My wording is bad as my emotional state isn't the best. That is on me, and I should have probably double-checked everything before posting. But his emotional state can't be any better than mine. He is dealing with everything, and on top of that, he is trying his best to keep my mood up. I know it sounded bad, but I took what he said with all the other actions he took so far to keep me safe. Am I the idiot for letting my best friend and her kids move in and turning my home into a war zone? My best friend just recently lost her husband, home, car, and all income. Her husband suddenly passed and was the only one working while she stayed at home with her 1-year-old twins and 4-year-old. They had nowhere to go, so we took them in until she can save up enough to get an apartment. There was no life insurance. My husband isn't happy that they are here. He has told me that he does not like my friend at all, that she has taken me away from him and has taken his home away. He is paranoid that she is stealing our things when we aren't home and wants to put locks on our bedroom and office doors, as well as put cameras in them. Today, my friend went into our room to smoke a cigarette on our patio to take a second away from her kids when we weren't home. She called me to tell me that she was going onto our patio, and my husband started freaking out. Now he says he feels like he needs to get an apartment, that he doesn't feel safe. He doesn't have a place in our home that they don't have access to. It breaks my heart that he hates my friend so much when she hasn't done anything. She's just going through one of the toughest times in her life. But I don't know if I am being too trusting of my friend and inconsiderate of his feelings, or if he is being too paranoid. Now for some comments. One commenter suggested there needs to be a discussion of a timeline for when she is leaving. They thought the husband agreed to take her in for the short term, and he needs to chill about them living in his space. However, they understood having another woman and 3 kids in the house is understandably not awesome. They suggested setting a timeline for when she is leaving and helping her find a place. The original poster replied that the agreement was a medium-term stay of 8 months to get her kids into daycare, get a job, and save up for a car and home. They acknowledged it was a mistake not to have a solid move-out date set for her, and agreed it's time to set that. The friend has only been there for a month. In response to questions, the original poster agreed that the friend should not have gone into their bedroom while they weren't home and said they need to re-establish these boundaries immediately. They have no problem with putting up cameras and locks if it makes the husband feel better, even though they will be talking with the friend. They emphasize that the husband is a priority over the friend's feelings. The friend is actively looking for work and daycare and has been with them for only a month. Another commenter mentioned that if they are in the United States, the children would be eligible for Social Security benefits and encouraged applying for those if the friend hasn't already. The original poster confirmed the friend is applying for everything possible and will ensure she applies for these benefits too. One commenter asked who is paying for food, diapers, and cigarettes, and questioned if the husband might be right about the friend snooping. They suggested letting the husband put up cameras to reassure him if he's wrong. The original poster explained the friend has been there for a month and is getting government assistance for food and diapers. They have a stash of cigarettes given to the friend because they don't smoke, and it's a common gift from the husband's family. They trust the friend not to steal, but are willing to put up cameras to be sure. They disagreed that the situation is the friend's fault, but agreed she needs to get her life together for her and the kids. Another commenter pointed out cultural differences, mentioning the husband is Chinese, which might affect how he deals with things. They noted the original poster's home seems to be a constant shelter for friends and suggested they need to make a choice about their marriage. The original poster clarified their home has not been a constant shelter, and this is only the second person to stay with them. They acknowledged needing to be firmer with friends and emphasized they both agreed to help the family in need. A commenter asked if the husband was part of the decision to let the friend stay. The original poster confirmed they discussed the decision for weeks before letting her move in and were both 100% on the same page at first. They acknowledged the friend cannot stay forever and has only been there for a month. They added that the husband was the one who originally brought up the idea of helping the friend. We begin with the original post. She has no reliable family. Honestly, it breaks my heart that absolutely no one on her side or her husband's family has helped or even reached out on their own. I've known her for 15 years, and it's always been that way. She was staying with her grandparents in another state for a few months, but they are elderly with a lot of health problems, and it became too much for them to handle in a male 2-bedroom condo. Her family is horrible. Her mother was in prison when she graduated high school, and her father kicked her out at 17 for not dropping out of school to care for his new child. It's very sad. His family, they were no contact with his family even before he passed, unfortunately. She is not taking us for granted at all. She keeps the house clean, cleans up after herself and her children, has assistance for groceries and diapers, waiting to get approved for other assistance. This is the only problem we've had with her in the month she's been here. Her situation is heartbreaking, especially for her 3 children. If it was just her, we would have said no. My husband and I were on the same page with letting her stay. We agreed to 8 months, but I do agree that we need to set a specific move-out date. Now for a few comments. A commenter asked, "Did you agree with your husband for her to stay for 8 months? Why save to get a car? She needs a deposit for house rental. She doesn't have a job. Who will help with childcare? I think you entered this in good faith, but it's such a burden to take on." Yes, my husband set the 8-month timeline. She will need a car to get herself to and from work, as well as her children to and from daycare. Public transport where we are is non-existent. She's rebuilding from zero. It's going to be hard. Another commenter said, 51% of Americans have life insurance, so it's actually more than half. It's very kind of you to help, but again, them not being prepared for life to happen is not your responsibility. You must pick your poison. Agreed. But my husband and I cannot in good conscience let 3 babies be homeless because of their parents' bad decisions. Now for the 17-day update. This update is a few weeks overdue, but a lot has happened. It's so hard to fit every single detail of a situation in one post, especially while trying to respect my friend's privacy while going through such a rough time. But I took a lot of advice. I apologized to my husband and asked him what boundaries he has and what needs to change for him to feel more comfortable. We did have this conversation before they moved in, but things are so different than expected. I realized that I was putting my friend before my husband, and it was a harsh wake-up call. My husband wasn't thinking about leaving me, but he was definitely unhappy. I am glad we had this talk because we have been a lot happier being on the same page. Well, we sat down and talked to my friend, and it went great. She apologized for going into our bedroom when we weren't home and agreed that it was unacceptable and will not happen again. I told her the bedroom and study were off limits, no exceptions. Her children need to keep their toys in the playroom we made for them and not downstairs so they aren't taking over the entire house. She agreed to these things completely. We changed the door locks on the 2 rooms, as well as added cameras and a safe for valuables. Most importantly, we told her she needed to get a job and her children in daycare ASAP, and gave her a hard deadline of April 1st. She took the whole conversation really well and said she needed this to happen so she could get out of her sadness and start building her life for her and her kids. 5 days later, she got a job and found a daycare for her children. It's been a complete switch in the energy in the house. My husband and I are spending more time alone in our home together, and all of our set boundaries have been respected. To everyone that said they'd never take in their friend and 3 kids, that is exactly why she has nowhere else to go. No one said yes. It's been rough on everyone, but my husband and I are confident in our decision to help. Even more so now that we both feel listened to. He has also worked on his anger towards said friend and feels more at ease while talking to her and existing in the same space. It also helps that he sees she is taking our rules and deadlines seriously and acting accordingly. Reddit obliterated me, and while I don't agree with kicking her out, I appreciate the brutalness that made me realize I was not backing my husband the way I vowed to. Now for some comments from the update. A commenter expressed doubt about the daycare situation, saying, "Children in daycare? You are delusional. She cannot afford that." No, she can't. She has assistance and found an in-home daycare that is working with her. She still has to pay some, but it's a lot more manageable. Regarding her smoking, someone commented, "Her smoking isn't my concern. If I put my energy into micromanaging everything she does, I'd go insane. She got her children in a daycare and got a job. I'd say she is getting her shoot together." Another commenter was surprised by the timeline, saying, "Yikes, April. She should be out of there way before then. 6 months to start from scratch is almost not enough time. We are happy with the move-out date." One commenter warned about the difficulty of asking someone to leave, saying, "If you let someone stay in your home, you will have a hell of a time getting rid of them if your friend suddenly decides she doesn't want to leave." I'm not sure how much these will actually help, but we did create a written contract with the rules and move-out date that we all signed. Maybe it won't really hold up in court, but it's something. Another commenter was glad things worked out and said, "Friend needed some boundaries too." Yes, I was so stressed about having too many rules, I didn't even think about the fact that it'd be so helpful for her as well. A commenter shared their perspective on personal space, saying, "You never go through the owner's bedroom. That is like a sacred area. My parents never told me that as a kid, but I've always thought that. Her kids just lost their dad and don't fully understand it. They have meltdowns sometimes, and at the worst, they all have a meltdown at the same time. She was desperate for a safe space for herself, which I can understand, but she can't compromise our safe space in the meantime. Go out back or front and lock the door, lock the bathroom door, etc. Motherhood seems intense." Finally, a commenter praised the decision to help, saying, "You did well, considering taking in a single mom with 3 kids. We need more people like you and your husband." Thank you. It was not an easy decision to make, and even more not easy living in it. But my heart broke as I witnessed them jump from house to house and have no idea what was happening or when they would see their dad again. My husband and I are fighting a fertility battle, so in a way I took all of my sadness of not being able to conceive and poured it into the 3 little ones. The experience we've gotten to prepare us for parenthood has been irreplaceable, and the love I have for them is deeper than I could have ever expected. I truly hope that my husband and I made a difference in their lives, giving them a place to be stable and safe. Our discomfort has a checkout date, theirs doesn't. Thank you for sharing your story with me. Am I the idiot for blaming my modern oven for ruining my grandmother's fudge pie recipe? This recipe has been a staple at Thanksgiving for at least 60 years. My mom grew up making it, I grew up making it. My grandma taught us the recipe. The recipe is very much a grandma recipe. Fudge pie, a half stick butter, 2 eggs, a half cup evaporated milk, 1.5 cup sugar, 3 tablespoons cocoa, vanilla. Stir ingredients, do not beat. Bake at 350 for 30 minutes. The way we used to make it was to stir everything together, then cut the butter into small bits and sprinkle on top. It would bake and be a delicious pie that was like a custard texture that tasted like a brownie with a crunchy top. The amount of vanilla is 1 cap full. Then, probably about 15-20 years ago, it took the pie 45 minutes to bake, right? About 10 years ago, we can't get it to set. We used to be able to cut into it while still warm, and it was set. If we try that now, it's chocolate soup. Delicious, but completely soup. The top looks like it should, but it's not set. Even if we let it cool, it doesn't set. We can leave it in the oven until the crust is black, and it is still soup. The method hasn't changed, so that makes me think something about the ingredients has changed. I know eggs have gotten larger. I have tried 1 egg, I have tried medium eggs. It still doesn't work. The closest I can get is with medium eggs, but the pie has to be refrigerated before it will set. Now I can't even find medium eggs in the stores anymore. The pie never needed to be cooled to set until relatively recently. I have tried cold butter, soft butter, melted butter. It will not set. We always use the same brand of cocoa, vanilla, and evaporated milk that my grandma told us to use. We would make this pie with her, so we know she wasn't pulling any shenanigans like giving us a bad recipe. My grandma died around the time the pie completely stopped working, so my mom and I can't ask her what's going on. We really want our fudge pie back on the table for Thanksgiving. Can anyone figure out why this recipe no longer works when it was such a good recipe before? We don't want another chocolate lava pie. Though at least this failure is delicious, we just want our fudge pie back. Now for the update. I have made 6 pies in the past 24 hours. All but 2 were soup. The very last two were a success. As I was staring into the oven on the last pie, I realized what is going on. I saw the bastard that has ruined so many pies. In my grandma's oven, the rack was in the middle. There were only 3 slots to place the rack in her oven. I have 5. The antique oven in the house I used to live in had 3. The 1970s oven that baked the pie correctly had 3. As I stared with sheer contempt at the massive size of the modern oven compared to the hotbox dinosaurs that used to bake this pie perfectly, I realized the smaller ovens, the middle rack setting, was closer to the heating element, with an element that wasn't under a sheet of metal, but on display proudly mere inches away from the rack. I cursed my bastard oven and all the other ovens that failed me. How dare they be so large? My grandma's oven could barely fit a turkey on the bottom rack. My grandma's oven was as old as I was when she taught me to make this stupid pie. All the other ovens I used that this recipe worked were older than I was. The ovens my mom used that baked this recipe correctly were older than me and failed in newer, larger ovens. It wasn't setting because of mixing method, ingredients, crust, or pie pan. It wasn't close enough to the heating element. Now for a few comments. Wilted Yellow Sun asked if the pie has a crust or is just the ingredients shown. I replied, has a crust. You can make it from scratch or use frozen. If using frozen, let it thaw a bit. Not frozen, but still cold. I prefer Marie Callender's crust. It's as close as you can get to scratch from a frozen crust. If you don't let it thaw, you will have a soggy bottom, possibly raw bottom. Wilted Yellow Sun then said, I made the recipe. As you said, absolutely delicious, but mine did not set very well and was definitely not custard-like texture. I think I didn't mix it well enough. I responded, it should look like this, iamgur.com/avemcocoa until no lumps. Stir remaining ingredients with a wooden spoon until blended. Adjust oven rack to second lowest position. Bake 30 to 45 minutes at 350 or until top is puffed up and center has slight jiggle. Let cool before slicing. I'll be making another one soon to nail down the bake time. Then Wano Matsuri commented with a European conversion. So in European, 57 grams butter, 126 grams evaporated milk, 300 grams sugar. Bake in 180 Cl. Saving. I advise don't forget to adjust the oven rack. Also 100 grams egg, 2 yolks plus however much white it takes to equal 100 grams, or just 2 medium eggs. Can't confirm if European egg sizes are like US eggs, but I can confirm you need 100 grams.